Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Roundtable. My name is Ben Hedges, and I am joined here with David Jiang and also Holly Kellum, who is going to give us an update on the situation with the resignation of the director of the U.S. Secret Service after the failed Trump assassination attempt.
If you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Yes, so after bipartisan calls from, both sides of the aisle in Congress, Kim Cheatle has resigned. I kind of thought this was coming because, she has managed to unite the country against her, which is very hard to do right now. We are a very divided country. But both, Republicans and Democrats said they did not feel safe with her as the director.
You need to resign.
Not only should you resign, if you refuse to do so, President Biden needs to fire you.
And why are you still sitting here not turning in your letter of resignation?
You do need to resign. This is bipartisan. I cannot tolerate your watch any longer, and I'm going to continue to call daily for you to be removed from your position, ma'am.
That every single member of Congress does not feel safe with you in charge.
I believe your horrifying ineptitude and your lack of skilled leadership is a disgrace. Your obfuscating today is shameful, and you should be fired immediately and go back to Garden Doritos. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
So she has resigned. She basically said that, while she wanted to finish the investigation, she didn't want her presence there to detract from all the good work that they do in the agency. I personally think that, she kind of had to have stepped down. It was just, she said, the buck stops with her. This was a massive security failure, and I'm responsible.
The assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump on July 13th is the most significant operational failure of the Secret Service in decades. As a director of the United States Secret Service, I take full responsibility for any security lapse.
And yet it was kind of strange that she didn't then take the next step to step down.
So the buck stops with you?
The buck stops with me.
You plan to stay on? Absolutely.
I do plan to stay on.
Also, do people trust her to do the investigation if she botched the security of this event so much?
After a critical security failure, we often hear there will be an independent investigation. And then nothing really occurs from there. And most importantly, corrective action is rarely taken.
There's been some recent developments that I think are also concerning. So my understanding is that, Secret Service was working with local law enforcement for this event. And there was a whistleblower who has reportedly come to a Senator Josh Hawley, Republican from Missouri. And this whistleblower says that there was actually supposed to be a sniper on the roof that the shooter was on, but that they left or that they weren't there because it got too hot.
Right, and this wasn't a Secret Service sniper, wasn't it? It was
correct. It was a local law enforcement that was supposed to be there, and that to me also raises the question of why are they using local law enforcement, to do a job that you would think that Secret Service would be much better trained to do, because local law enforcement, how often are they, training as snipers? Generally they're probably trying to, arrest a drunk driver or something like that. So that raises a lot of questions for me.
One thing that came to my mind when this came out, the whistleblower, I was watching it on Twitter or X, was that clearly it almost felt like to me that somehow the Secret Service seems to be understaffed, underfunded, undertrained in a way that somehow showed now up, unfortunately, during this incident. But I don't think that's the case. I think they must be well-funded, they have the right training, they have the right procedures. Mm-hmm. So the question becomes, how did the security flaw get so big?
Mm-hmm. She claimed that they're underfunded, didn't she, Cheatle?
She did, yeah.
Yes.
She was grilled by Congress.
But it's possibly not true. It's probably just her saying.
Well, she has a $3 billion budget. She has 8,000 employees.
Yes.
Okay, so.
I mean, any managing person, when they're asked about, are you guys, well, I would think that they would say, well, we don't have enough.
They could always do with more, right?
Yeah, we could always use more.
Right.
But
it's easy to blame it on the money, right? After the fact.
And we also learned that in Butler County, that they were forced to work with local law enforcement because, again, there weren't enough Secret Service agents there on site, so they basically had to do it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we can't put the blames on local law enforcement. But for them to say that, okay, we're already here, and then it got too hot, so we're going to stay in a AC'd room. I really don't think that's how law enforcement's supposed to be.
No.
Because, you know, I was just in New York City the other day in the subway station, and it's like,
it's hot.
It's 100 degrees in there. And, you know, these police officers, they were still in their uniform. They were standing there guarding the platform.
Especially right at the start when Trump is just coming on stage.
Yes.
The first 10 minutes of his rally, and that crucial time, they're like, let's go inside and appreciate the AC and eat some donuts. It doesn't really add up.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this is just going to kind of feed the conspiracy theories, and I don't even want to call them conspiracy theories because there are so many questions that I think it naturally, you know, leads people to the place of like, is this really just incompetence? Because you just can't believe that, you know, they would be so incompetent. So I do think it has people like looking for alternative, you know, explanations for how this could have happened.
I don't know how true this is, but there were these videos of people that allegedly attended the rally. Obviously, you can't verify if they're claiming to be true or not. That they were saying, you know, there was all these mysterious people that were traveling around and then they somehow disappeared, or that you can bypass the rally security to go through these like shortcuts because of local area knowledge that they gained, so they can, you know, scale a fence and go into the rally without going through security or all these things. So it really felt like that there was almost like unpreparedness across the board. And but it doesn't answer the question for me, which is how the shooter was able to, you know, basically roam around for a very long time.
Well, and the timeline for when they knew about this guy just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. You know, you hear that he was taken out in a matter of seconds after, you know, there was a policeman who kind of like got up on the roof, and then, you know, the shooter pointed his gun at him, he ducked down, and then, you know, shots rang out, you know, and then he's killed. So, you know, that was kind of the initial time frame we had. And then, you know, we hear like up to 26 minutes before, you know, local law enforcement knew about him. They were looking for him. They knew he was a suspicious person.
The Secret Service is revealing that agents first learned the suspect was on the rooftop a full 20 minutes before the shooting.
They allowed Trump to take the stage. I mean, it's just like mind-boggling. And then the fact that he was there the day before and had, you know, been flying a drone around the area, like that's now out there. And like all this information, I mean, it's
he also somehow managed to walk over there with a ladder and put a ladder, his own ladder that he brought himself, and put a ladder against the building, whilst having a backpack or
and a rangefinder too,
and
you know,
Even the counter sniper team apparently photographed him 3 times. And that information somehow got lost in relaying to the command control or whatever the center of command is.
But this is the crazy thing, like all of this, we're taking law enforcement for their, you know, at their word that this is what happened. But like, I don't know, you know, it's just like, it brings to mind so many questions of like, is this really what happened? Like, to be honest, like, there's just been so much trust lost over the last few years. You know, we had the FBI agents who, you know, talked about in their text messages about creating a, you know, an insurance plan in case Trump got elected, and then the whole Russiagate, you know, investigation started. So I just feel like there's just like so low trust in, you know, especially federal agencies right now.
But I'm really glad that this was a bipartisan consensus that, you know, she needed to step down, and that this wasn't just about Republicans or Democrats, but it was like, at least at the end of the day, that the presidential one of the contender to be the president is equally protected as the sitting president.
If he'd been the sitting president, would he have had the same security he had on July 13th, or would have been beefed up?
There is a difference between the sitting president.
So your answer is he didn't.
Or that, you know, both nominees should be on equal level when it comes to security. I think that's fundamentally the important.
And I would say that there have been some good things that came out of this. You know, RFK Jr. has been, you know, basically publicizing for many months now that he has no Secret Service protection.
And yet I'm the first presidential candidate in history since my father's death, 56 years, who's requested Secret Service protection. And it's been denied.
And there have been intruders who have come into his home that, you know, he has had to pay for private security, so fortunately he was protected, but, you know, there are threats on his life, and, you know, being a third-party candidate, we all know that both parties see that as a spoiler, so, you know, I think it's good that he got Secret Service protection.
Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will receive Secret Service protection, according to Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. It comes at the direction of President Biden as a result of the shooting at a Trump rally.
I also think that, you know, apparently the Trump campaign had been asking for increased security before this, and this was a big issue in her testimony on Capitol Hill the other day, because, you know, she basically, there was a communications director who flat out denied that the Trump campaign had asked for increased security for him. She confirmed that there was actually requests made, but she, you know, she's very good with, you know, kind of walking around the issue. She was like, well, for this event, you know, all the security needs were met. Okay.
Obviously not.
Obviously not, right. There were some big gaping holes, obviously, if they had to use local law enforcement. So, yeah.
And also, I think another point is, at the end of the day, the investigation is still ongoing. But I feel like we won't ever get to all of the details on what really happened, but it will be something that'd be interesting to know, like how different the story will be for the final sort of conclusion to what some of the mysteries that we were talking about, like if they really do answer them or not. My guess is that they won't answer many of these, or that we won't get really like a good answer for them, because at the end of the day, I think once, you know, the shooter is dead, like many of these cases in the past, it really cannot find out the real reason. We just hope that, you know, there's something never happens again for any presidential.
There's just an internal investigation. There's no big court case against the shooter with discovery.
Yeah, but there is an IG investigation. So, you know, they're outside the agency, supposed to be a little bit more independent. So that gives me a little hope. But I don't know. You know, I just feel like so much has happened. It's kind of like you don't want to fully trust anyone in Washington because it just, you know, it's the whole swamp creature thing.
Well, I think that's a good point to end it on. And guys, what do you think? Do you trust anyone in Washington to get to the bottom of this investigation? And what are your thoughts on Cheatle resigning? Should she have done it sooner? I'd love to hear what you think. Big thank you to Holly Kellum. You can check out her show, Newspeak. And of course, David Zhang from China Insider will put their channels on screen now. Please subscribe to this channel for more content like this. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.